A South Carolina official who endorsed Joe Biden last month is now backing Senator Bernie Sanders in the state's first in the South presidential primary. Dalhi Myers, the vice chair for Richland County's 10th district, tells the Associated Press she now feels the former vice president is a compromise choice.
Myers, who considers herself a conservative Democrat, says that she values Sanders' strength in being able to take on President Trump in the general election.
For more on this, let's bring in Maayan Schechter. She covers the South Carolina State House and politics for the state newspaper. Good to see you.
Thanks for having me.
So what does Myers' switch in the endorsement mean for Bernie Sanders?
Well, it's obviously a good get for Bernie Sanders, who is seeing some momentum as we get closer to the Iowa caucuses and the election in New Hampshire. But it remains to be seen what that will do for him here on the ground. Certainly, Joe Biden has seen a large swath of support across Richland County, which is heavily Democratic voters, a heavily African-American area. But having Councilwoman Myers now on the Sanders team it's a good get for him. She's known as an outspoken councilwoman on Richland County Council. She's someone that can help kind of send his message and share his message with folks in her district. One of the interesting things from Meg Kennard's article said that she decided to back Bernie Sanders because she felt like he could inspire younger voters. And that is an issue that I know that the Joe Biden campaign has been trying to combat. The former vice president himself has, in interviews with us and interviews with other reporters, tried to tamp down any concern that he's not able to connect with younger voters. But certainly this will be an interesting get for Bernie Sanders, and it'll be interesting to see how he's able to move forward with this endorsement.
So you spoke to Joe Biden. And he was essentially saying, you know, a win for him is a win for other Democrats running in down-ballot races. How does he feel that him becoming the nominee will benefit other Democrats?
Yeah, so obviously Joe Biden sees himself as sort of the moderate candidate, someone that can poll Democrats, mostly conservative Democrats, even progressive Democrats here in South Carolina, but also maybe pull some independents over, some Republicans over. The down ballot issue is a concern to political observers here in South Carolina, particularly to Democrats who are hoping to hold on to 2 congressional seats. I mean, obviously, House Majority Whip Jim Clyburn's seat is pretty safe, but we have Joe Cunningham, who won the 1st district congressional race in the 2018 midterms, stunning Republicans, and he is up for re-election this year, hoping to hold on to that seat. We also have Democrat Jamie Harrison, who's running against U.S. Senator Lindsey Graham for the U.S. Senate, and so there's a lot of discussion about who is going to be at the top of the ticket to help those voters when they show up to the polls and vote down ballot for their party. It's certainly a concern for some observers and Democrats. So Joe Biden, when he sat down with us, really talked about why he was the better fit to be at the top of the ticket, mostly because of those down ballot races. I mean, how we got to that answer was he was laying out his tax policy plan, a bunch of other very large proposals, and we asked him, well, how are you going to get any of that done in a Congress that is so partisan these days? And he said, really, it obviously takes electing more Democrats to Congress. And who is going to be able to do that at the top of the ticket? Well, me.
Maayan, as you know, lawmakers on the Hill are gearing up for day 3 of the Senate impeachment trial against President Trump. Based on what you're seeing, I wonder, is impeachment a prominent issue in the state?
Not really. In so many words, people really care about the kitchen table issues, healthcare, education, for some criminal justice reform, gun violence, the issues that affect them and their families every day. I mean, certainly impeachment as it's being played on television every single hour, maybe voters start to kind of tune into that, and that becomes sort of the tipping point for why they ultimately decide to vote for one candidate over another, or to just vote in general. But it hasn't played, it's not been a main focus point. When I've talked to voters, I know when other reporters talk to voters, it's not been like the main focus point that voters are talking about why they're deciding to show up either at their polling precinct, either in February or November.
So I guess if you are a Republican, you don't think that this is an issue because Senator McConnell has already said that he's going to do whatever it takes to coordinate with the White House. On the other hand, if you're a Democrat, is the sense that, look, we have an election coming up, let's decide it at the ballot box based on the issues that we're hearing from the candidates as opposed to, you know, what is happening in Washington, D.C., which is a political exercise?
Yeah, I think so. For a lot of Democratic voters, I mean, I don't think that they're necessarily sold on the president is going to go through an impeachment trial and then walk out of the White House. I think ultimately a lot of voters see if we're going to actually create change, if we're going to get him out of the White House, it has to be by our vote. I don't see that sort of thought process changing at all. And you mentioned Republicans. Obviously, in South Carolina, President Donald Trump has a pretty large support among the Republican Party here in the state. So, yeah, not a whole lot of people are very swayed by, I think, what is going on in terms of how that impacts their thoughts on voting.
So there's some recent polls that indicate that Tom Steyer is actually gaining some ground in the state. Why do you think that's happening?
So Tom Steyer's candidacy is really interesting here. I mean, he's obviously been able to spend a lot of his own money here in South Carolina on ads. You know, I talk about this with people all the time, that if you were just voting for someone maybe based on what you see every single day, you would think that Tom Steyer may be the only person running for president here in South Carolina. You see his billboards everywhere. You see his digital ads all the time. He's on television all the time. So he's been able to spend a lot of money in this state. He's been able to hire a lot of staff in this state. But to give him credit and to give his campaign credit, he's also had a pretty successful ground game, I think. He has come to the state. He's been able to come and visit South Carolina many times. He sits down, particularly with very small groups a lot, and talks to them about the issues that affect them, the issues that they care about. And the voters that I talk to who get to sit in on those sit-downs with Tom Steyer really feel like he's listening and that they get him, even if they've never met him. What was really striking to me is Monday at the King Day at the Dome celebration at the State House here in Columbia, South Carolina, when I was talking to voters about whether they had decided who they were going to ultimately vote for in the primary, it was really, really interesting because a lot of them said that they wanted to vote for Biden, but their second choice was Steyer. And a lot of that comes because they've either seen him on television or they've gotten a chance to sit down with him and they feel like he's really listening to their issues. So it'll be interesting to see once another poll comes out, hopefully soon. I'd like to see another one that kind of shows whether Steyer has been able to hold on to that sort of second place that Fox News poll showed earlier this month.
Maayan, thank you very much.